Hello and you're very welcome to another GAA podcast. I'm Sean Mann, and of course this podcast is brought to you by Orgarich.com and Atak.ie. Use the promo code GAA podcast to get 15% off on Orgarich.com and get the best games, gloves, and equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack-minded. And if you're liking what you're seeing, like, subscribe to YouTube because the sport's been absolutely brilliant so far. And tonight I'm joined by former Wexford footballer Matty Ford and former Antrim footballer Kevin McGurdy to talk about last weekend's All-Ireland Club Football Final and this weekend's Allianz National Football League game. So really looking forward to the chat tonight with the lads. So what's up with yourself, Matty? How are you keeping?
Good, John, thanks. Delighted to be back on after a few weeks, and I said the league now is starting to get a little bit interesting after round 3. The runners and riders are taking position, I suppose, and it's interesting. Some really good games coming up across the 4 divisions on Saturday and Sunday, so looking forward to them again.
Happy days. And what yourself, Kev, how are you keeping?
All good, but like Matty, looking forward to talking about this weekend's game and what we seen last weekend. So not only the club finals, but let's say a lot of schools action last weekend, a lot of Sigerson action. So yeah, really looking forward. A couple of juicy clashes, top of Division 1, top of Division 4. So yep, let's get into it. Happy days. And I believe, Matty, you have a new addition up in Wexford there. You're happy out?
Yeah, look, that's probably I was off there for a small bit as well. Little fella born in 26th of October. So yeah, things have changed around here a bit since then, all right, in every sense.
Happy days. And it's Valentine's Day, lads. So, Kevin, did you do anything for it?
Well, I spent my first Valentine's Day with a group of fellas, not only on here, but high up in the Cusick stand with the Tyrone and Armagh fellas. So I was referee for the candlelight dinner that's happening there this evening.
Very good. And what about yourself, Manny? Did you get up to anything?
I just had an early start doing a feed and then a day's work after that, and I'm probably not long home, but like Kevin, I wouldn't have minded even been in Croke Park for the start, or would have been good. It'd be interesting to see what comes of it tonight.
Very good. I believe it's going to end up in copper, so we'll have to wait and see, lads. Right, we will crack into it on Saturday. You had the All-Ireland Club Football Final between Kilcoo and Kilmacud, Crokes, and obviously Kilcoo came out on top in it, and after extra time it was Kilcoo 2-8, Kilmacud, Crokes 13 points. So Kevin, what was the verdict on this one?
John, I still, 72 hours after whatever else we are, I haven't got my head around this for a multitude of reasons. How Kilcoo won this match is beyond me. And how they lost, they'd actually be thinking to themselves, if they had lost, how they lost it would have been beyond me. Because in the first half, I spoke to you last week, I called this game a draw. I thought it would be a humdinger. The quality overall was quite poor, if I'm honest with you. But Kilcoo needed to get off to a good start to settle them nerves. There was a lot of pressure on them to get into the game. They've been on the road for quite a long time. Obviously, the gut-wrenching loss that they had to Corofin a couple of years back was obviously looming large on them. And really, they looked so nervous, so many wides, so many, uncharacteristic wides early in the game, which was quite telling. So in terms of that, it was the games, it didn't go the way I expected it to. Kilmacud were obviously much more clinical. The way that they used the ball, the way that they, controlled the game at certain stages in that opening period. Diaz really running the show, and I feared for Kilcoo at half time. I really did fear for them. And in fairness, Mickey Moran's team talk, must have been one of them things that we only see in films. To go out, and we heard them after the game about the pride and just go out and do yourselves proud and do yourselves justice. And they came out the second half, and in fairness to them, the likes of Paul Devlin, Conor Lavery stepped up to the mark. Obviously Eugene Brannigan. They put in, as we know him, Chuck Brannigan, Aidan, the oldest of the Brannigans. He came into the fold as well. So they brought on that bit of experience. And as I suppose the last 10, 12 minutes, it was obviously inevitable. Kilmacud sort of collapsed in on themselves. After that goal opportunity, obviously that Michael Rooney gets the hand in, obviously the most important point in the game. That sort of turns the game and sort of Kilmacud collapsing in themselves. They only scored 2 points in the second period, which tells its own story. And realistically, when the game went to extra time, there was only going to be one winner, in my opinion. And the character that Kilcoo showed. And I suppose Matty might want to talk more about the game. Obviously, being where I'm situated in terms of where I'm from, I'm not too far from Kilcoo. I know the club very, very well. There's been lots of comments on Twitter and different social media about what this means to them. Look, this is an absolutely incredible feat. If you blink going through, you'd miss Kilcoo. It's 7 or 8 families. These people are as passionate as GAA people as you get anywhere in the country. That's all there is. There's that and sheep. And it's incredible. Conor Lavery, their sort of poster boy, the guy that most people would know. Yes, he's a phenomenally talented footballer. What a coach as well. But the guy, there's no airs and graces. He's down with the under-12s where his kids are. He's out with the ladies' teams. This is just, it's such a great, great story. And I suppose to cap it all off, they've been on the road for so long, but they sort of needed that guy to come along, that was going to just guide them over the line. And he needed them in a way, because Mickey Moran has been around for so long. He's such a gentleman. The amount of time that he's given to Ulster football, maybe people don't see. He would know my father very, very well. And, Mickey has been involved in schools football right from the 70s in places like Limavady, where it wasn't really popular to be involved in the GAA then. Obviously, he develops as a coach. He's involved with Derry Seniors. He's involved with his own club. He's involved in Jordanstown. He goes to Mayo. You can talk to Conor Mortimer, or you can talk to, guys up in Slough-Neil, or you can talk to a guy who was maybe at a school in Limavady, or, Brawley, or these guys he coached. Mickey Moran has given so much to football. It's unbelievable. And for him to get that crown and glory on Saturday was anybody that likes football likes Mickey Moran, and it was so good to see.
I echo a lot of that, Kevin. Well, yourself, Matty, obviously Kilcoo getting over the line after extra time, a very exciting finish. Kilmacud looking like they had the palm of their hands in the first half, but Kilcoo had other things to say about that, Matty.
Yeah, look, there's not a lot I can add to what Kevin has said there. In fairness, he summed it up from start to finish pretty well. I think Kilmacud definitely started with that bit of a Dublin swagger, and they looked like maybe they could kind of nearly even run away with it in the first half. But if ever there was a team in the country, and particularly at the moment, could do as many things wrong as Kilcoo did and stay in the hunt and stay in the game, it'd be Kilcoo. And you have to give them savage admiration and credit for that. And as Kevin said, when it went to extra time, there was only going to be one winner, but still, had that goal chance gone in, that's game over. That's probably game over. But Mickey Moran, I think, and Kevin has obviously touched on it a lot, deserves unbelievable credit. But I think one fella that probably hasn't been mentioned at all, and Conor Laverty obviously does a huge amount of work with him as well. But Conor Gilligan, I think, deserves a huge pat on the back. He's been Mickey's right hand man, in a couple of different places at this stage, and there's obviously something there between the two of them. And I think that the lingering picture, the lingering thought from the whole thing is that the picture of Mickey Moran kissing the patch of grass in the square where that final goal is, somebody that's done as much as he has to still, to go out in Croke Park and do something like that. And, I do a lot of work with Kilmacud, and I know a lot of the Kilmacud, and I know Robbie Brennan well. And, they, like, obviously they're two totally different ends of the spectrum in regards to clubs, and this win would have meant every bit as much to Kilmacud as it would to Kilcoo, but no one can begrudge Kilcoo their win. And they're totally different ends of the spectrum in regards to club size and everything like that. But the fact that the Brannigans and the Johnsons and numerous other sets of brothers, and Kevin says made up probably of 7-8 families, that in the whole club. And had they not got over the line this year, if the next one could have been, it's a long way back to an All-Ireland final again next year, the year after. And some of their better players are probably on the wrong end of 33 or 4, and just for them to get over the line, I think it'll mean an awful lot to them. And look, I think for what they've done for football and the way they play the game over the last number of years, I think it's well deserved. And that's no disrespect or anything to Kilmacud. They're certainly trying to play the game in the right way. And I suppose the big one obviously was one of the best footballers in the country didn't play for them in Paul Mannion. And I think maybe him obviously not being there is obviously a huge turning point as well. But look, Dave came through a good Leinster campaign and an All-Ireland semi-final without Paul, but I don't think there's a team in the country playing in the Club All-Ireland wouldn't like to have Paul Mannion playing.
And John, just to emphasise a point Matty's made there, and it's very important, the point he's made, is that the one thing that we've got from this competition this year is we've all got hope. Kilcoo give us hope. No matter how big or small your club is, you can make it into Croke Park, on that special day for clubs, and you can win. It's a fairy tale almost for them, the size of this place and the way it's been, and that's why there's been this outpouring of emotion towards them. So for people starting out, the club season starts around the corner very shortly. Anything is possible here, and they've showed us that, and I think that's the one thing I take away from the story of this year. As Matty says, Kilmacud is a club I have an awful lot of admiration for. My connections down there with the Sevens and whatever else. But, you're talking about a massive juggernaut of a football club here, resource-wise, playing-wise. Kilcoo is at the opposite end of the spectrum, and it's an absolute fairy tale.
Absolutely. Congratulations to Mickey Moore and Conor Gilligan and Kilcoo lads. The celebrations are ongoing, and God knows how long it'll go on for. Massive congratulations to the lads. It was a great victory on Saturday night. So we look ahead to this weekend's action, lads. In Division 1, round 3, you have Armagh against Monaghan in the Athletic Grounds at 5:30. So that's a huge game this weekend, Matty, to get the Allianz Division 1 league campaign for round 3 started this weekend.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's one to really whet the appetite, and I'm sure it'll be on telly for us all to see again. Armagh are probably the team of the league so far. They're back playing the type of football that they were in the early 2000s. A lot of kicking, a lot of direct kicking, diagonal kicking. But they're not afraid to throw those 50-50 balls in that, not too many teams are prepared to do at the moment. But I suppose when you have players like Green O'Neill in there, it's a small bit easier for them than it is a lot. But I think McGeeney, actually, in fairness, deserves a huge amount of credit. His first couple of years over Armagh would have been quite negative and quite defensive. And look, you can only cut your cloth to fit what you have as well. But I think he's bolstered up the squad. He's got in a lot of young blood, a lot of really fit young guys who are really good footballers and physically huge specimens. And obviously the two O'Neills are the two obvious ones, but there's several more. But they're playing really, really good football. And if this game was anything like the championship match last year that we witnessed, we're going to be in for a cracker, and I think we will actually be in for a very good game. But I think the weekend's weather is not to be too hectic as far as I know. But this is probably going to be the game of the weekend in my opinion.
What about yourself, Kev? That's a game to really look forward to this weekend. Yeah, I want to just touch on 2 points that Matty's made, and really brilliant points they are. This is such a big game for both teams, and people might say, why am I saying that about Armagh? I said this to you last week. Armagh over the last 4 or 5 years under Kieran McGeeney have been losing these types of games of teams around them like Donegal, like Tyrone, like Monaghan. Teams that are quite close to them. They've been on the wrong end of a 2, 3, 4 point defeat. So we've just now seen them get over Tyrone. Donegal is still an obstacle that they're going to have to look at in Division 1 of getting over them. And obviously Monaghan come this weekend. Monaghan again beat them in the championship last year. Again, I think it was a point or two in that game. So that was the sort of game they've been losing under McGeeney. And now they've sort of got that. They're building up a bit of momentum, a bit of belief going into this game. And this will be a real target for them. As I say, this is the type of game they've been losing. The second point that Matty makes is really, really good point. And it's people have to understand, and I'm sure our friends Paul Hurley and Johnny Murder will not like me for saying this, but Crossmaglen's dominance was such an Armagh that the club scene in Armagh had gone off the boil a wee bit, the competitiveness in it. Now in Armagh, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen a real competitive club scene. You've had Ballymacnabb, you've had Pearse Oaks, you've had obviously the champions this year, Clonairon, you've obviously Crossmaglen. So 5 or 6 clubs have been competitive in the championship. And that means the spread of players. We're not only talking about players here from Cross stepping up to the mark. He's got a good strength and depth panel now. And that spread of players is really important. As I say, the last day out, they had 11 different scores in a Division 1 game. And, okay, Rain O'Neill and Rory Grugan get a lot of the plaudits. But these guys across the board, they're stepping up to the mark. Again, agree with Matty. Under McGeeney, the first couple of years, it was really a project where we were saying, where's this going? When are we going to see them break through the glass ceiling? They look as if they're on the edge of doing that now. They just need to get a wee bit more consistent in Division 1. They've had last year, now they've started this year well. The last thing I'll say about them is that, when we look at Armagh going forward, the kick pass, the speed of ball is great. But when we look at them at the back as well, the intensity in the tackle right now is phenomenal. And I think that's the one thing that I would be just wary about. I mentioned this to you last week. How long can they sustain this 70 minutes of intensity for? That's the one big issue I'd have to say. Look, in the Tyrone game in the second half, they dropped the intensity a wee bit, let maybe Tyrone get that foothold in the game. So, look, everything's looking well for them. They're looking up. They've got great momentum. This is a big game for them. Can they get over their local neighbours? But as well as that, let's look at how intense they are for that 70 minutes.
Definitely. In the next game of the weekend, you've Dublin against Mayo, Croke Park at 7:30. So, Kev, need to say much more about that game?
I think there'll be a few observers, neutral as well, looking on in this with licking their lips. You know, it's not only obviously Mayo coming back into Croke Park against a Dublin team that they wiped the floor with in the second half last year after the All-Ireland semi-final. It's a Mayo team coming back to Croke Park after what happened to them in the final last year. As I said to you last week, you know, they've gone up to Monaghan. You know, they've had a lot of knocks over the past 5 to 6 months, whether that be players coming back in and other players getting injured, whether that's retirements, whether that's losing the All-Ireland final. They just seem to keep on getting back up. They weren't great in the first half at all up in Markievicz Park against Donegal. They respond by going to Monaghan, which isn't an easy thing, putting on a very steady display. They've changed the team up a wee bit, as I mentioned to you. They'd no Loftus and no Ruan the last day out. Ryan O'Donoghue has sort of followed on where he left off last year. And the 3 points in the league where they've just come up into. So, I mean, they're going into Croke Park with a hell of a lot, you know, of positive attitude, of positive vibes, of that word I mentioned again, momentum. On the flip side of that, you know, geez, Dublin need a result here. You know, quickly inside Croke Park, if things start going badly in the first half, the crowd are going to get very obtuse, very upset. You know, Dessie Farrell's under pressure. As I said to you before, the one big thing to me is not that Dublin don't have the squad or the players. The environment in around the Dublin setup at the minute, the professionalism that was there under Galvin. I don't know what's happened to it there under Dessie Farrell. And the new players coming in, you know, the older players need to step up and show them, you know, that bit of leadership. The new players coming in have to step up to the mark too. So there's a lot of unanswered questions about Dublin. And, you know, if anybody needs, in any of the 4 leagues, needs a win this weekend, it's Dublin. And, you know, 6 weeks ago, if I'd have said that to you, you would have been bringing me to St. Pat's on the south side of Dublin. You know, so this game for me, Matty said the last game, for me, this is the game of the weekend because there's so much going into it for both teams. But the consequences for Dublin coming out of this, if they're on the wrong side of defeat, you know, I don't know what Monday's papers are going to be like for them if they are defeated. I mean, I think we're going to see a sort of a Ukraine situation here where it's going to be at boiling point.
Kev, I was going to bring you to St. Pat's without that game this weekend, so how does that sound? Matty Ford, Dublin Mayo. Mayo want to get a win here, but Dublin, by God, Dessie Farrell needs a win too.
Yeah, well, Mayo are probably the one team in the country at the moment that won't fear going into Croke Park, and they haven't over a number of years. You know, they always haven't come out on the right side of the result, but they certainly won't fear going in there. But we're not really going to know till close to throwing of what's going to happen because we don't know what the Dublin team is going to be. And them more so than any will name a team, and it could have no resemblance on what's fielded. But I do feel if it's the same Dublin team that played in Killarney, I'd really fancy Mayo. But like Kevin said, Dublin need a result here, you know, really, really badly, just for a bit of momentum and get a bit of a foothold in the season. You know, 3 times to lose 3 league games in a row and 2 of them at home, you know, it's going to really heap pressure on the players and it's going to really heap the pressure on Dessie. And, you know, they just can't afford it. And I think it's not going to be pretty, but I think they might be able to eke out a result. But like Kevin was saying, you know, it's a strange looking environment in there at the moment. There's a lot of things happening in games that never would have happened, you know, during Jim Gavin's time. And, you know, guys shooting from strange positions and, you know, indiscipline and stuff like that. And, you know, once it starts to go, it kind of can be hard enough to arrest it. It can be very hard to turn it, but there is still obviously enough good players and really quality players in that Dublin side to get a result here anyway. But, you know, geez, I wouldn't like to be Dessie on Saturday night if it's another defeat, and probably particularly to Mayo as well.
Absolutely, Matty, absolutely. On Sunday in Fitzgerald Stadium, you have Kerry against Donegal at 1:15. So, Matty, that's another mouth-watering game.
Yeah, look, to be fair, all Division 1 games, this is why the league is just so good. You know, if only anyone ever had thought of maybe playing the league during the summer and having it as a championship. But anyway, that's for another day. And this is the same across all 4 divisions. All the games are pretty equal, but Division 1, like you've just every week you've top quality games and really, really good games. You know, Kerry will be on a bit of a high after the Dublin game again. You know, they're looking reasonably impressive, I have to say, and particularly down in Killarney. I think they're going to be really hard to beat. But, you know, physically, Donegal are one team that will be able to match them. But I just think for the weekend, I think I'd really have to fancy Kerry at home. I think, as I said, home advantage in the league. And, you know, the 3 games we've mentioned so far, I'd be picking the 3 home teams anyway. And I'm not going to change my mind Kerry home, as I said, off the back of that good performance against Dublin. I'd fancy Kerry to take 2 points from this and continue their impressive start to the season.
Kev, what about yourself?
Yeah, fully in agreement with Matty. There's not much more I want to add, bar that in the Kerry end of things. Look, Daniel Goulding said it last week. I know somebody came on to you, John, last year and pummeled me for it, but I said that, look, Kerry's big issue has been for the last 2-3 years their defence. Look, we will get a wee glimpse of that this weekend when someone like McBurty stepping up to the mark. You know, they'll probably put somebody like Tom O'Sullivan in him. But it's how Kerry defence and indeed their goalkeeper, which for me has been quite problematic for a while in terms of kickouts and safety in there. It's how they cope throughout the league. You know, we all know what they've got from 8-9 upwards. You know, they're the best attacking team in the country. They've the best options up there. They've the best firepower. You know, it's really what happens to them at the back. And I fully expect them to win this weekend. For me, this is more about what we learn about Donegal. So the big issue is Michael Murphy still injured? Will he play down there? The likelihood is probably not, and they won't sacrifice him. Maybe they'll wait till later on in the league for what they may call targeted games. Again, Donegal did a fairly lackluster performance last weekend again, a bit like Markovitz Park the week before that. They had a good opening 35, then a lackluster 35 last weekend again, a good opening 35. And, you know, they weren't overly great in the second half, okay, albeit conditions weren't great. Donegal, they've moved Ryan McHugh forward, as I said. Michael Langan is stepping up to the mark, scoring for them. McBurty is forever consistent. You know, but the problem is I don't really see a lot of new blood coming into this Donegal team like we've seen 4 or 5 years ago. They're a pretty steady team now. And Declan Bonner's under a wee bit of pressure. He hasn't had the best 24 months or so in the job in terms of, you know, Donegal would really be looking at an Ulster title every year, every other year. So there'll be a lot of pressure from him coming into the championship on bringing the Ulster title back to Donegal. And a good league for him is a must. I don't see them getting anything here, and I think he'll target other games. But I think Donegal might be overawed by Kerry this weekend.
Definitely. The next game we have Tyrone against Kildare in O'Neill's Healy Park at 3:15. And are the Tyrone lads going to leave the boxing gloves behind this weekend, Kev?
Well, we'll see tonight, won't we, if they get off. And I think it's important that them 4 guys do get off because there's such big players for them at the back. You know, 4 defenders typically who have been, you know, who were shown a red card. And the other problem with Tyrone, I mentioned to you last week, is their panel is nowhere near as good this year as it was last year. Nowhere near as good. And that's the big issue for them. They haven't started the league well, and the McKenna Cup, obviously, for them, it was really about trying out new players, given they were away on holiday. It's now time to hit the ground running. The party season's over. It's down to get back down to things here. You know, obviously, first half, Fergal Logan had a say last week after the first half against Armagh was abominable. A lot of, you know, Matty talked about some of the stuff we've seen from Dublin thus far this year, you know, shots under pressure, making basic mistakes, you know, a lot of that from Tyrone as well last week. So they want to eradicate that as soon as possible. I think they'll have really targeted this game. You know, as I said to you before, Kildare seemed to have their best team out last week up in Donegal. Okay, they did all right in the second half, but it's going to be very difficult for them to get many points in this league outside of Newbridge. And it's a difficult task for them to go up there. I fully expect Tyrone to win. I go with Matty in 4 home wins in Division 1 this weekend. And I think Tyrone this will be the one game where this will be their catalyst then to say that last season is parked, this season has begun.
There we go. Matty, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think what happens in Croke Park tonight obviously has a bearing. Definitely, I think you take out those 4 players, and it's it's the whole it's 2/3 of the defence gone basically if they are. And as Kevin said, they don't have the players to replace them that might had last year. Obviously a lot of guys have left the panel at this stage, and they're only probably not that long back into pre-season and possibly been away on holiday and stuff like that. So look, you've seen the same with Limerick in the hurling. They're only they're only getting back in. Look, I'm sure they're not going to be overly worried, but they will definitely target their home games to try and get points. And I think this is as good a weekend as any. To get a win this weekend, that puts them on 3 points and they're up into mid-table, and they're only probably a win away from being safe enough for another year. As I said, if the guys are missing, I'll tell you, this is no foregone conclusion. I'd kind of wait and see what does come up tonight before I call it. I still think they will out Tyrone, Kildare, and because they'll have to, they'll have to get a win on the board. And as Kevin says, this could be the place that they can kickstart their season from. But it won't be easy. Like Kildare, to be fair, played well against Kerry in round 1, and they'll have a real live scoring threat up front from a couple of different players. So they'll go up and fancy their chances. And I said particularly if Tyrone are short a few bodies, because the likelihood if one is suspended, 4 will be suspended. So I'd wait and see before I make a final call on who's available and who's not. But you'd have to fancy Tyrone just about to squeeze out by a point or two.
I suppose, Manny, just a quick word on Kildare as well, because obviously there is a full deck of cards, management-wise, Johnny Doyle, Anthony Rainbow and Glenn Ryan, Paul Galvin's given a hand. So, if they were to be defeated this weekend, and I know this probably is an ideal chance to be playing Tyrone, Matty, if they were defeated maybe narrowly or by maybe 6 or 7 points, would that be big disappointment for Kildare, because seeing as Tyrone are down tools?
Well, they're going to try and pinpoint it. Dublin, they would be looked at the start of the league, Kerry at home, were they expecting to win that? Probably not. They got a point of it, and we're very lucky to they lost in round 2. So, if they lose this weekend, they're staring down the trapdoor of heading back to Division 2 as well. So, they're definitely going to target, and especially where any All-Ireland champion is not going to be, All-Ireland champions are not going to be at full tilt in round 3, and they're going to see it as a great way, first of all, getting 2 points, but then kick-starting their own season as well by beating the All-Ireland champions. That'll give them a great shot in the arm, because they've probably the 3 of the biggest legends of Kildare football are over the team, and if their players aren't going to respond to these guys, they're not going to respond to anyone. But to be fair, the Irish said they were very impressive again against Kerry in round 1. So it's we all know if anyone that played in Division 1, going away in Division 1 is playing home in Division 1 is tough. Going away is very tough, and you don't get too many wins on the road, and so it's not going to be any different for Kildare. But I would definitely give them a chance. I said particularly if 2, 3 or 4 of these players are suspended from whatever happens in Croke Park tonight.
Good to see. Yeah, former Wexford manager Paul Galvin involved, Matty as well.
Yeah, look, I'm still pretty friendly with Paul, and I can understand 100% why he left Wexford. And he's come out and he said little bits about it since. I'd kind of half wish he'd come out and say the rest of it, to be honest. But
we'll get on to that yet, Matty. Don't worry.
Not today, anyway. Not today.
I could just see your blood pressure rising there. Right, Division 2 on Sunday. You have all 4 games on Sunday, no games on Saturday night, so you have the full deck of cards on Sunday. So the first game of the weekend in Owenbeg, you have Derry against Cork at 1 p.m, nice and early Sunday lunchtime, Kevin. So that's a good game to look forward to.
Yeah, and if Derry want to expect to go anywhere, which I think they are, and I've said this to you over the last couple of weeks, Derry are going places, but this is the sort of game that they've got to indicate to us as well that, Cork, big name county, All Ireland winners just over 10-12 years ago, lots to pick from. Coming up to Derry, this is a signal to us that, look, when somebody's coming up to Derry, they're going to get it hard. Derry, for me, on the right trajectory to be in Division 1. Got a lot of things going for them at the minute. Got a great tactical manager in Rory Gallagher. Everything seems to be going in the right direction for them. Down in Division 4, a bit like Cavan maybe at the minute. In Division 4, they were never a Division 4 team, have come up to League 3, they're now into 2, the natural progression is into 1. Everything in Derry football is going right. They won All Ireland Minor a couple of years back. I think they've won 3 or 4 of the last 4 Ulster Club Minor titles. St Mary's Maherfeld have just won the McCrory Cup. There seems to be a great abundance of youth there. So a lot of positive vibes in Derry. Very good squad developing there as well. The likes of Kieran McFall, Conor Glass obviously coming back in. They've an couple of older lads, Benny Hearn, Brenton Rogers, Chrissy McCaig. So nice wee blend of youth and experience as well. They've got 2 wins under the belt. And as I said, I think that there's a top 4 in this league and a bottom 4. Derry for me are certainly in the top 4. Cork are in that bottom 4, in my opinion. So it's going to be interesting. But I think that, look, Derry are going to be really difficult to beat in this league, especially in Owenbeg. And I fully expect Derry to win this. I fully expect Derry to get up out of this league, and I fully expect Derry within the next 2 to 3 years to be either Ulster champions or certainly competing for an Ulster championship.
There you go. And the next game of the weekend, you've Galway against Offaly in Pearse Stadium at 2 p.m. So, Matty, that is not a nice trip for the Galway meant to be making, or Offaly meant to be making.
No, a tough day out in round 2 at home to Derry, and I'd fully agree with everything Kevin said about Derry. I think I actually would I tipped Derry to win Division 2, but yeah, look after that defeat at home to Derry, you don't really want to go to Galway. And I think Galway are probably the second most impressive team in this division, in my opinion. They're playing well. They're playing with confidence. The 2 wins, and Salt Hill is a tough place to go to any time of the year. But coming off the back of 2 heavy enough defeats for Offaly, and our wins are scarce. I said that home advantage. But I think there is, as Kevin says, there's 2 divisions in Division 2, and I think unfortunately for Offaly, they're probably right at the bottom of it, and Galway are right in the top half. So I think it could be another very, very long afternoon for Offaly, and I can't see him getting 9 here. And I think Galway will come out here very comfortably, not even close. I think I've seen somewhere they're 14-1 on, and it's probably about right. So the bookies don't often get it that wrong anyway, and I can't see it being wrong on Sunday.
Absolutely. Next game, you've Meath against Down at 2 p.m. in Park Tulchin and Navan. So 2 teams probably in contrasting form at the minute. Both managers are under a lot of pressure, and obviously Mr. McEntee seems to be cracking under that pressure, Kev. So enlighten us.
Yeah, look, this is. My older brother Kieran had sent me we were chatting about the Wayne Rooney documentary. It's on Prime at the minute.
Oh, I've seen it.
Great watch for anybody that hasn't seen it. But he was telling me that in the Derby County changing room, Rooney has up points without administration, points with administration, as a motivating factor for the team. And really, this is what the managers in Division 2 of the league need. They need to be looking at how Meath and Offaly and Down and maybe Cork are doing every week. There's too many tables in there, if you get me. And certainly this is a game that both sides will be targeting. Huge game. Down have been so poor in the league thus far. I've seen both of their games because they've been covered live on BBC iPlayer. As I say, I know the 2 guys manage them very well. I've played under them. They're very proud men, but Manny said earlier on, a good thing. You can only go with a deck of cards you're dealt. And it's not a great deck of cards up there at the minute. Obviously the Kilcoo boys will probably be still 2 sheets to the wind come Saturday, so they'll not be in Park Tulchin.
Where will they be, Kev?
Who knows with them boys? They could be in Blackpool or somewhere. Who knows? Good luck to them. But I have to say I would fear for Down going down there. They're very, very leaky at the back. We look on the flip side of that. Yes, Meath have been abominable in the first half in both games that they've played. But the one thing for me is, in fairness to Meath, the last 20-25 minutes against Roscommon was pretty good for them. They came back. They showed that old Meath fight, that old Meath pride. The other thing I would say is Down aren't an overly big physical team. They're more this sort of dainty team, if you want to put that way, of footballers. Meath are much more physical than them. Can maybe bully them about, and maybe the conditions will suit me a wee bit more heavy undershod foot. So, it's hard to go down to Park Tulchin. Usually Meath play with pride there. They didn't the last day out. They haven't started the league overly well. You'd be expecting a major response. Andy McEntee will really have them up for the game. They'll be targeting this game. And if I'm honest with you, I see nothing other than a Meath win, because Down don't inspire me at all. I think the trajectory is Down going down. Pardon the pun.
Very good. Roscommon against Clare in Dr. Hyde Park at 2 p.m, Maddie. So, geez, you've been a brave man to call that game.
Yes and no. I think, in fairness, and we've said it probably on here a couple of times, Clare have been a team who've been punching above their weight for 6-7 years now, and Colin Collins goes about his business very quietly, and doesn't say a whole lot, but they're very impressive against Cork the last day in down in Cork as well, and probably deserved to win the game actually at the death. But said it's just this, and I have a real thing about it. It's going away in the National League is really tough going. We throw into that, Roscommon are quite impressive as well. The 2 Smiths are leading the attack from 11 and 14 and scoring quite freely. I think, I can't see anything but a Roscommon win here. But if any team in that division is capable of going to Roscommon and win it, it could actually be Clare. Look, having said that, I still think Roscommon are going to win it. And I do think they'll win it probably with a couple of points to spare. And Roscommon are certainly one of those teams that are in the top half of this division, and one of those teams that'll be fighting out for the top two places come round 7.
Good stuff. And moving on to Division 3 on Saturday around lunchtime actually. Antrim against Wicklow in Carrigan Park at 2 p.m. And no better man to ask this question to Kevin McGurty. What are we reckoning?
Yeah, obviously last day out, Antrim didn't start very well. So again, I think that and then Stephen this week will be focusing in on that, getting a good start at home, making home advantage pay, as Matty's just alluded to, and
Thank God it's not in Wicklow. Thank God it's not in Wicklow anyway for the lads.
Yeah, it'll be, that would be hard enough going down there, especially with the primitive conditions down there. And, but look, it's very hard to go away in the National League. Antrim didn't make it hard for Limerick the last day out. They gifted him 2-3 in the first 10 minutes and obviously ended up in the losing side, the wrong end of the result. This time around, they want to be targeting that first 10 minutes. They want to be getting off to a good start. As I said to you before, I don't really see Antrim as promotion contenders coming into this division. When you have Laois and Westmeath there, who are two pretty strong teams, they for me are the two obvious favourites to go up in this. But Antrim will be targeting all the other teams to take points off. So, they've lost to Limerick now, maybe a team that we're targeting and maybe thinking coming up to Kerry would be hard for them. Wicklow will certainly be a team that they need to target to stay in the division. I would be expecting a reaction from what has happened, last weekend. So maybe changes as well. He maybe needs to start Ryan Murray, who didn't start the last week, come on, scored a couple of points. He may change the goalkeeper, who gave away a couple of stupid kickouts, and that was quite costly for them. So, a couple of decisions for him to make, but I think the one thing he'll be focusing on is getting that good start and making home advantage count, which they didn't do the last day.
Absolutely. In the last game of Division 3 of the weekend, you've Fermanagh against Laois in Brewster Park at 6 p.m. on Saturday night, Matty. So it's a very, very tight game to call.
Yeah, it is a tough enough game to call. Like, Laois were quite impressive in round 1 of the league, winning pretty comfortably. But then, had in my opinion, a bad defeat the last day. They looked like probably the strongest team in the division, but Kevin said along with Westmeath. But I give Limerick a real shout. Limerick are going to be very difficult to beat at home, or to beat down in Limerick in this league. But Fermanagh are in dire straits. If they lose tonight, if they lose on the weekend, they're really looking at heading back down to Division 4, and likewise Laois get a win, and they're put themselves right back into the promotion picture. So. Fermanagh, they haven't looked good. They struggled to score. I think they've only scored, I think it's 20 points in 2 games. Over the years, I showed you'll probably need 15, 16 plus points even this time of the year to win most National League matches. And at the moment, it's probably not even going to win a lot of them. Laois have that capability of putting up scores like that. And I think of all the games I've looked through, and I've looked through them a couple of times at this stage, it's probably the one away team that I would tip at the weekend. As regards value, it's not very good, but I see Laois going up there and getting the 2 points, and putting Fermanagh into huge relegation trouble.
So yeah, on Sunday you've Limerick against Louth at TUS Gaelic Grounds at 2 p.m. So Kevin, Mickey's Louth is going to have to show a lot of heart to win this one. Yeah,
well, obviously only a point in the league. They were very poor. Against Longford the last day, I think it was, they were quite poor, and then obviously they showed a bit of character to kick a point towards the end to get their first point in the league. They'd obviously been beaten first day out by Westmeath in RD, I think it was, and it doesn't get any easier for them. For me, Limerick are probably the 3rd best team in this league. Billy Lee has been improving this team over the last 2-3 years. They've stayed up, and they come up from 4. They've stayed up in 3 last year. They'll be now looking to kick on. So, for me, going down there for Louth probably is a big ask for Louth. The other thing Mickey will be looking at very closely is, a bit like Fermanagh, as Matty said, Louth really need to get points on the board, not to go back down again. So they'll be very conscious going into the 3rd game in the league. They've only 1 point out of 4. To lose this 1 out of 6 and they are then in a relegation battle. So, maybe he'll have them motivated going down there. But for me, it's Limerick all day long. Limerick are on a good trajectory. They're coming off a very good win coming to Belfast. Remember, for them logistically, and again, it must be said, I'm not sure what the issues here are, so I'm sorry if I'm speaking out. But Limerick come up to Belfast for a 2:00 start last Saturday. I don't know if they come up on the Friday night or whatever else happens to be. If they come up on the Friday night, that's lads getting out of work, travelling up, through the night there, coming into Belfast at 10 o'clock, maybe 10:30 for a 2:00 match the next day. Or indeed, if they left on the Saturday morning, it's an all-day round trip. The logistics of me were wrong for Limerick, but they come up, they done a professional job. They started very well against Antrim. The other thing I'll say about Limerick is that I'm quite impressed with them. Anytime I watch them, they're quite clinical. They've a couple of good scoring forward, so I would expect them to get the job done against Louth. They seem to be, as I say, it seems to be quite a professional setup, quite a professional environment with Billy Lee, and they are making some strides there.
Absolutely, Kev. Absolutely. And then the next game, you've Westmeath against Longford in TEG Cusack Park at 2 p.m. Matty. So that is looking like a 2-pointer for Westmeath.
Yeah, you'd have to think so. Longford had a bit of a rotten start as well. They've only a point from 2 games, and again, along with Laois, probably Westmeath are obviously the favourites to come out of Division 3 and head back up to divisions. But they have been, they'll probably be expecting to win this, and I think they probably will. Again, as I said, it's one of these ones where home advantage is going to count, but they just look to be probably a little bit ahead of most other teams in this division, and particularly at home. If it was in Longford are a sticky wicket in Pearse Park a lot of the time, but Cusack Park, I think, said the home comforts, I think will tilt this Westmeath's way, and I think they'll probably win it with a bit to spare, and they'll be on top of the league, I think, again on Sunday night, probably along with Limerick as well.
On Saturday in Division 4, you have Carlow against Waterford in Netwatch Cullen Park at 7 p.m. So that's going to be clashing with the Dublin and Mayo game, Maddie. So which game are you going to be watching?
To be honest, I'll probably watch Dublin and Mayo this weekend. I was thinking of going maybe to the Carlow Waterford game, but no, look, I can't, like, Carlow home to Waterford. This game happens twice a year, most years, or that's what it feels like. Carlow are 6-4 home to beat Waterford, which I find a bit strange. I know they haven't had a win, and they took a heavy beating up in Sligo in round 2, and only scoring, I think it was 5 points or something like that. But no disrespect to Waterford, they have been a Division 4 team for as long as I can remember, and I think it's a great chance for Carlow to get 2 points on the board. I think obviously relegation is not an issue down in the basement, but they're going to want to start pushing themselves back up and just getting a little bit of confidence in pre-championship, which obviously is not that far away. But I fancy Carlow, even though they're outsiders. I think I fancy Carlow to win this and to get the 2 points at home to Waterford.
There you go. On Sunday in Division 4, you have Leitrim against London in Avant Money Park, Sean McDermott at 12 p.m. So, geez, that's a good sponsor on board there, Kev. What's the prediction ahead of that one?
Well, London have 2 wins in the bounce. When's the last time we said that? Which is great. And we spoke about the positive vibe the positive news story that is. So, yeah, they'll be looking to continue that. They have a couple of Kerry lads there, as Dan was rightly saying last weekend, who have come in and maybe good quality in them that have added into the exile. So, look, they'll be looking to come over. That bit of consistency is key to them. Obviously, the Connacht Championship with the 3 teams that have dominated over the last number of years is a bit of a minefield. But for them, it's a focus on the league. So, again, they'll see this as another chance to get 2 points. And the one thing about the 2 games thus far is they've been tight enough affairs, but they've shown the character to come through and win by the bare minimum. So, they'll be going there with a lot of confidence. On the flip side of that, with Leitrim, obviously, Andy Moran's come in. They had a real positive win down in Tipperary. Not a lot of people seen that one coming. So, including the bookies, problematic. So, that's a big thing. Andy Moran seems to get in there. The vibes look good. He's brought in a few of the older guys. Nice mix of youth and experience. They're getting that managerial bounce, if you want to put it that way. So, they'll be thinking to themselves, this is a real target game for them. 2 points. I don't know if Andy Moran will be targeting promotion this year. He probably will say he is, but let's be realistic with Cavan and Sligo and maybe Wexford in there. So, this is a chance maybe to get another win under the belt, to build momentum for him. And maybe a special mention as well is I've just learned today that this will be the first National Football League game refereed by a woman.
Oh, so, Maggie Farley from Cavan.
Yeah, congratulations to Maggie Farrell. Big jump forward for our game, and obviously an intriguing encounter. But for me, probably after the win last week, we're looking at a Leitrim victory, given home advantage and given the positive vibes coming out at the minute with Andy Moore.
Takes a good Cavan man to sort the lads out. And Kev, the economy is rising over in London. Would Andy Moore never be tempted to a trip over to London? The expenses must be good.
Depends if Dermot Desmond gives them the money for it, doesn't it? So expenses, that's, well, you have to talk to Croke Park. Are they legal, or what's the story with them? Or
Matty, what's your take on it?
On the game itself, I suppose, yeah, look, it is hard to look past Leitrim. I think that could actually be nearly dark horses to come out of this division. As Kevin says, they're going to get the new manager bounce, and look, it just depends on what way their fixtures fall. Look, it looks like Cavan are a good bit ahead of everyone in this division, and you'd be thinking that the other place will come down to probably whoever wins the Cavan Tipperary game. But like, I wouldn't rule out Leitrim. That win could give them a huge shot in the arm to get another one at the weekend, and they're right back in the promotion hunt. And I fully expect them to win at the weekend.
Absolutely, Manny. Absolutely. And in the next game, you have Sligo against Cavan in Mark Fitzpark at 2 p.m. So, Matty, we were talking off air. Sligo's 3-1 going into this game. It could be a potential banana skin for the Cavan, but the Rays should be looking at 2 points here. Yes, of course they should. Look at their, as we said, they're not a Division 4 team, but there's strange things happening in Division 4. It's not the free-flowing football you get in probably Division 1, Division 2, and it can be a bit of a dogfight. And I really do think that performance the last day that Sligo put up 28 points, I think that's going to give them a real shot in the arm. They won a game in Wexford Park in round 1 that they shouldn't have won. I was at it, and I really feel Wexford left it behind them, and I wasn't overly impressed with Sligo, to be fair. But put up 28 points in any National League game. Carlow have been sticky enough customers for a lot of teams over the last few years, but they really put them to the sword. And there's serious scoring in 28 points this time of the year. I think they're going to make it really, really difficult for Cavan. I wouldn't rule out a draw, but I just have maybe just a little sneaking suspicion that Sligo could sneak this one. Oh Jesus, Matty. Kev, what do you think?
Look, there's no doubts that Matty makes really, I'm not just saying there's some valid points here. We're into this, I think it's year 2 of this McEntee project. They showed good signs. They're coming off a real confidence booster last day out albeit against a poor Carlow team. And, for me, the two teams that should be going up from this league are meeting this weekend. So, it's top of the table clash for me. When I think I predicted these two teams to go up at the start of the year. Cavan, look, they shouldn't be down here. They have a good player pool. I think at the minute, Geroid McLennan's really stepped up to the mark in this league. Martin Riley as well, leading as a veteran leading. So, for me, it'll be a tight encounter, but I still would expect, and I think it'd be a disgrace if Cavan don't win all of the games in this league with the resources that they have. So I'm going to go for Cavan, but I still expect Sligo to get up out of this league.
Thank you, Kev. Matty, you must have the Sligo boys back, do you?
No, not at all. Jeez, no, look at this. It's just it's football this time of the year. We've seen it numerous times over the years. Yeah. I definitely do think the home advantage is worth something. I do 100% agree with Kevin that Cavan should be the first team to get out of this division, and then it's probably one from 2 or 3. But we've seen some funny results in the league, like Leitrim and Tipperary, just spring to mind. So look at we'll wait and see, and I'm sure I'll hear about it over the weekend if it's a Cavan win anyway, from probably Atak.ie.
John, the other point that Matty makes is really important. I don't think you ever had the pleasure, Matty, of playing in 4 in all your years. You were always in 3, 2 and 1.
No, I played a lot in 4, believe you, Kevin. I played most of it in 4, and it's every game is a dogfight.
Yeah, and he makes a real good point about, you never know what's going to happen, because you could be so demotivated at times playing down there. And I'm not just saying that. It's so demotivating some weekends to go down, like you're going on a long trip down to Limerick and stuff. And you never know Antrim going down to Limerick or Wexford going up to Sligo. You never know what team's going to turn up, because the motivation sometimes can be lacking for that sort of game.
Yeah, I know ourselves, we coasted down to the Fraher Field in Dungarvan, which is not the most salubrious of surroundings. One February a couple of years ago, after winning 2 games in a row, and got our arse handed to us. And actually there was a young fella playing for Waterford that day called Jason Ryan, who was playing sweeper, and the following year he was manager of us. So, you know, at that time we should have been going down, no disrespect, and winning that game comfortably. But you know, you get what you earn what you get this time of the year, particularly in the league, and you know, particularly on setting away games. But look, it'll be interesting to see what happens, and I think probably one of us is going to be right anyway.
Jeez, I hope so. And Kev, like them big long trips to the likes of Limerick and Waterford, did you get fed well after the games and all, expenses paid and all?
I'm not going there, Joe. Not going there. You were looking at the start. You were looking at October, November time. You were looking at the fixtures to find out when you were getting an injury that weekend, or was there a golfing weekend, or was there a stag weekend, or was there something happening you weren't available? You know. It's all about the planning, John. It's all about the pre-planning kit.
Very good. Here we go. Wexford against Tipperary in Chadwick's Wexford Park at 2 p.m. Matty Ford, we cannot wait for this one.
Do you want to ask Kev about this? Maybe I thought I was doing the last one and Kev was going to do this one. Look, it's going to be tough again. Very similar to what I was saying about Fermanagh there a few minutes ago. You know, Wexford have only scored, I think it's 20 or 21 points in 2 games so far, and you know, in any division, that's not going to be enough to get you over the line. We are having a problem with scoring over the last number of seasons, and you know, averaging out probably, I think if you look back at it, it's probably no more than 10 points per game. I know they did have a fairly morale boosting win over the weekend over Cork in the challenge, but you know, that doesn't translate into league performances or league points for that matter. Look, at Tipperary have to be, I think, reeling from the defeat at home to Limerick the last day, and you know, the former Wexford manager David Power is still obviously over Tipperary, so he's coming back to town as well. But you know, I think, you know, similar to Cavan, probably not at the same standard, but Tipperary are probably a little bit too good for this league. I think they're probably a Division 3 team, to be fair, and I think they'll fully expect to come to Wexford Park and get a win. And you know, we've had a habit of losing tight games over the last couple of years. You know, there was numerous league and championship matches I've been at where Wexford put themselves in a great position, and none more so than Sligo in round 1, and just couldn't see it through. And you know, that seeps into, I think. And look, at while obviously I'd love to see Wexford getting 2 points on the board and getting back going on Sunday, I think it's going to be incredibly tough for them again. And you know, the conditions are not supposed to be good, again, by all accounts. And you know, we're certainly not a team that likes slogging through the mud, and you know, probably no more than Tipperary. But look, at the end of the day, they're only Munster champions 2 years ago, so you know, they can't have gone back too far from there. So you know, while I say it hesitantly, I think Tipperary will come out here with a point or two to spare.
We've touched on this numerous times, Matty. Like, what is going on up there? Because I did watch this in the first half against us in the league in Breffy Park there a couple of weekends ago, and it was just a very dishonest, or dispirited performance. And poor Shane Roach was just along the sideline looking out of his days. And I was saying to a chap in the stand, like, you know, what does Shane Roach like say to the Wexford footballers this week? What does he do? It's real nightmare stuff, Matty. Really, when you think about it. Yeah,
look, I did say to you off air there. Look, it's really demoralising, and you know, I do feel a lot of pity, and you know, for guys that are playing football for Wexford at the moment. Not only Wexford, but you know, I don't know what's going on in other counties. You know, our championship last year was ran start to finish in 6 weeks. So you know, the hurling is ran before that, where there's probably a good lead into it with league games and stuff like that. So you know, you can't expect to have a strong county team with most of your county players playing 5-6 weeks of championship football, you know, in a year, and then probably straight back into pre-season. You know, it's not just giving them a fair crack at the whip. Do we have the team like we had maybe 10, 15 years ago? No, we don't, or the players like that. But I mean, I really don't feel, and it's only my opinion, that they're not being given the proper platform to try and prepare properly to play inter-county football. Like, every inter-county team now is training as hard as the Dublins or the Kerrys. They mightn't have the resources, they mightn't have the players, but you know, you need to be doing that much training. That's what needs to be done, and that's just to compete. It's not to win. Because I know in our own time, you know, we had players, but we just didn't train as hard as we should have until we actually copped on and seen what was going on. But we were kind of, I think, being given a much better crack at the whip than the current crop of Wexford footballers are. And you know, while it's, you know, I can't see a change. You know, I mentioned off air there about the young fella. Is he going to be a Wexford footballer in 18 years' time, or Kevin did? Is he going to turn this around? And you know, like that's realistically what we're looking down the barrel of. It's going to be as poor as this, I think, for a good period of time to come. And look, at Derry, we're probably one of those teams for a while. We certainly were. You know, everybody has been there at some stage, but I think we're a long way from even being really competitive again in the likes of it, even Division 3.
Yeah. What about yourself, Kev? Ahead of that game, what are you thinking?
Well, first things first, I think it's very important that, those who do view this, comment on Matty. Matty's obviously been at the very pinnacle of when Wexford football over the last half century has been at its highest levels. And to hear that from a player, one, it sends, sort of that chill about the way that them players are being treated. But two, about the fact that change is needed, reforms needed, that those in power need to listen to people like Matty or players that are playing now to say, look, this is not on, this is not the way it should be, and this is what we need to do. So it's very important that the points that Matty getting across are, are circulated and people get that discussion going. And look, I've had it up here in Antrim as well. You put an opinion across, the county board just goes ahead, that maybe the likes of hurling was given priority over things, that you're disrespected in a lot of ways, and there's not a lot of motivation to go and play or to drive on, and generation after generation after generation it becomes a failure. So some very important points there from Matty that I hope are taken on board by people. I suppose that when we look at this game, it's two teams that have lost 2 games. The only difference is that Wexford have probably played, for me, as I say, the 2 strongest teams thus far. And the first day out, Matty had said it, they should have got over the line in Wexford Park, and maybe a bit gut-wrenching that didn't. That maybe then takes on the effect of how they performed against Cavan. Going back down now to play a Tipperary team who, correct me if I'm wrong, lads, I think Conor Sweeney's the highest scorer in the National Football League, is he, at the minute?
I'd say so.
Yeah. I think he is.
7 points to last, I think, yeah.
Tipperary are very over-reliant on Sweeney, and I know that he's not the only good player that they have, and maybe they're underperforming compared to where we've seen them 2 years ago, but Tipperary in a real fragile position at the minute, and this is a good chance for Wexford to get back up on the horse again. If you hold Conor Sweeney, you're a long way to victory, but on the flip side of that, as Matty said, Wexford aren't scoring a lot. So, it's marrying up the two, keeping Sweeney at the back safe, but also having that sense of adventure and that, attack to keep the scoreboard ticking. Again, it's going to kickstart whoever season wins this. So that's why it's an important game. I don't see the 2 teams at the minute getting up. That's just my opinion. So it's really about the catalyst for kickstarting the season. And as I say, I'm going to go against Matty. Matty's talking his own county down, really for good reasons. Wexford just to pip Tipperary. I think Tipperary at the minute are a real, fragile place. Nobody knows what's really going on there. And, I think their season's already ruined. As I say, we need a really strong Tipperary for Munster to be a decent, competitive province. We've seen Clare, certainly under Colin Collins, make great strides. We have seen Limerick now under Billy Lee making some strides, and really Tipperary have regressed while they have progressed. So it's sad to see. But, whoever wins this one, it's going to kickstart the season. And Wexford have a few handy enough games after this, haven't had 2 difficult games to start the league with.
There you go. And Matty, if I was asked you this question, who would be your player to watch this weekend and the bet of the weekend?
I suppose some of the obvious one. I'm really looking forward to seeing Rian O'Neill again. I think every time he plays, I suppose Clifford is the obvious one in the country. Rian O'Neill, I think, for me is right up there with him, and he can do a bit of everything as well. And I'm really looking forward. It's very hard to see how this guy is going to be stopped. He's a huge physical unit, and he can do a little bit of everything. Whether he has to go from midfield to full forward, he can do it all. So definitely looking forward to seeing him again. Better the weekend. I'm actually going to stick with Carlow. I think Carlow at home at 6-4 versus Waterford. I think for value, I think is a good bet. I think we're going to see a lot of home wins. But I think Carlow at home, I think are one of the better bets for me for the weekend.
Kev, what about yourself?
There's a plethora of players I'm looking to see him for different reasons. Obviously, Matty's outlined Rian and his consistency. Ran O'Donoghue going inside Croke Park, who, he's left off where he stopped last year, really good. Patrick McBurdy maybe faced up against Tom O'Sullivan's going to be a real ding-dong battle if they face up against one another. The one player really that he doesn't get a lot of publicity, but he is massive to Derry. Is a guy called Ciarán McFall, the centre back for them. Goes through a mountain of work. He's same club he's from Glenmahara. They're under Malachy O'Rourke at the minute. He's same club as Conor Glass, so he sort of falls underneath Conor Glass's shadow. But he's really important to how this Derry team functions. And Derry have one of the traditional giants coming to them in Cork, albeit Cork are themselves working through their own issues and problems. And that's going to be really good to see them this weekend, how they attack Cork and how they tackle this game. So, while we all be watching the bigger lights, for me, Ciarán McFall has been really good in the 2 games thus far. And just this Derry team's progressing. And I think it's important people begin to watch them and watch the individual players in them. And McFall's sort of an unsung hero for them. So let's see how he gets on this weekend.
On your bet of the weekend.
Do you know what? Matty Ford is going to laugh.
He's coming back like
Not that I think they will, but the odds he gave me, and it's going to be a ding dong battle. So I think down there. So it's 3-1, Matty, is it?
This is Cavan and Sligo.
Yeah.
Sligo 5-2, Cavan 2-5.
There you go. So for a wee bit.
What's a draw?
7-1, 7-8-1, something like that.
There's value there. Maybe there could be looking at a lot of draws this weekend. But what are you thinking, Kevin?
Many draws. I predicted last weekend's All Ireland club was a draw. I think it was 8-1 or 9-1.
Well done, White, by the way. Well done. I know you wanted praise for that one.
Yeah,
that's why he said it 4 times now. So he wanted to tap on the back.
He said he put it into the WhatsApp group.
Matty, to be honest with you, I wish I'd have said it 10 times because it's about the bloody only thing you ever get right on this thing. Do you know what? I'm going to go for 1 draw in all of the games played this weekend. 1 draw. I really think there'll be 4 home wins. I think that's a good bet. 4 home wins in Division 1.
Right. There you go. And can Cavan beat Sligo then, Kev? Is that a certainty?
John is not going to go till both of us say that Cavan are going to win this weekend. So I can't see I'm going to Cavan victory, to be honest.
I'm going to go for Sligo then.
You're good mates to select on that Cavan team, Kev. That matters.
Yeah, Jelly. Yeah, that's why they're not scoring too much.
Off the field, not on the field. Lads, thanks a million. That was an absolute pleasure. Of course, this podcast is brought to you by orgaretch.com and Atak.ie. Use the promo code JMAC to get 15% off on orgaretch.com and get the best skins, clothes, equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack-minded. And if you like what you're seeing, like and subscribe on YouTube because the sport's been absolutely fantastic for Kevin, Matty, thanks a million.
Cheers, John.
Cheers, Matty. Kev, all the best.